Here we are. You are live. Very good. Success. Already a success. Anyway, welcome back, everyone. Whoever's listening, I'm just going to give people a couple minutes to join us. As promised, I posted earlier, we have another Mom Bomb Monday for everybody today. And I have a really awesome friend here joining me. Her name is Katrina Johnson. She is a Reiki master, an Akashic Records practitioner, and she's going to give us all the details about the amazingness of her offering and what she shares with women specifically. But hi, Katrina. Thank you for joining us today. Love
I'm
it.
excited, but I'm nervous.
No. If you're listening to this live, if you pop in live, just say, pop in the comments. Don't be nervous because I'm going to let's put it this way. I'm assuming and I'm almost demanding it of people at this point. You've seen me go live with this show enough times. It's unscripted, it's completely raw. There's very minimal preparation, and there is a reason for that. If you haven't, noticed yet, one of my biggest pillars of not only my purpose on this world in this world, but my whole vision is no, we're eliminating the concept of perfect. We're not here. We're not here for that. So it's probably, I think, one of the reasons I'm drawn to do this show live. Because I think it's important for it to just be okay, look what happens. Look what some of the amazing conversations and good stuff that can happen and we can share with the world, even if we are completely unscripted, unplanned, because we all have a little message inside of us that we need to share, that we are either holding back or actively sharing or somewhere in between. I think everybody knows it. It's just a matter of whether they're doing something with it or not. So anyway, that's why I just went on Facebook and tagged Katrina in the post, so it's on her page too. And everybody, you can comment into this conversation, and we will see it. So just in case anybody wants to say hello, here we are. So yeah, let's get into it. So Katrina, would you mind, now that we've had hopefully a couple joiners, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself? And so, yeah, where you live. Obviously, you're a mother. We're going to get into that a little bit about your family life, your kids, and then also, your offering to the world, because I'd love to know. We're getting into, the spiritual wellness this month for March. So I think it's amazing that the very first conversation I'm having this month is with somebody who's a Reiki master. So I think we should get into that too. But I want to know your background. I want to know about your life. I want to know about you first.
Okay, so my name is Katrina. I live in southern Wisconsin, so it's like 25 degrees right now. Um,
Nice.
I'm 27, if that matters. I don't know. I always feel like I have to include my age, but I joke around that I'm an old woman in a young woman's body because I crochet, I read, I rather stay home than go out and do stuff. So I'm a hermit. Um,
Mhm.
I I don't know what else to say about who I am. That's really it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you've got children. Tell us about that. Your family
Yes.
life. Yeah.
Okay. So I have two boys. Jackson is 6 on the 13th, and then Bentley is 4.5, and they fight all the time.
Mm. Fun.
It I have two difficult children in two different ways. Jackson's very aggressive and don't help me, I got this. And Bentley's more emotional and I need help with this. How can
Mm.
I help you? And they're both water signs. So Jackson's a Pisces and Bentley is a Scorpio. And I'm a
Woo!
Virgo, so
Me
this
too.
is not okay.
What's your birthday?
August 26th.
Oh, so you're an early Virgo. Got it. I'm September 22nd. So then, and there is a distinct difference I'm noticing between an early
Hmm.
Virgo and a late Virgo, because I'm so borderline Libra that I don't know. You don't even know what the hell's going on with me half the time. You could get either one on any day. Amazing. So, but yeah, I think that, I mean, obviously that's a good segue too into sort of the other topics that we could go into with this. But So first, before we talk about, I'm going to couch this as the best as I can. Not only do we want to talk about Katrina's offering and a little bit about energy and a little bit about Reiki, and we can get into the spiritual aspect of this stuff. But we're gonna, and it's great because I actually think that it is connected. The concept of talking about the struggles of motherhood is, I think, like a form of spiritual self-care, because I think that it's the only way to voice truth and or concern, um or a cry for help. um an overarching cry for help, right? Over a really controversial and sensitive topic that I don't think a lot of mothers are tapping into. So that's why I call it I will label it a form of spiritual self-care, to actually sit, like we talk so much, in our woo world, right? We talk so much about like sitting with ourselves and sitting in silence and having an opportunity to like go within and all of these phrases, right? Well, it doesn't necessarily have to look like that, like sitting in meditation. I think that speaking truth, like with a person, like we're doing right now, even somebody that we don't even know that well, because clearly I had felt a connection that I needed to have this conversation with Katrina. But it's like, having these hard conversations out loud with people about the struggles of one element of life or another is a form of spiritual self-care, which I think is wonderful and aligns all the pieces of our conversation today. Um,
Yeah.
but yes, so before we get into the motherhood aspect, tell me, I mean, I know a little bit about Reiki, or Reiki, depending on how you like it pronounced. So tell us just like a little bit about that for the viewers who are totally unfamiliar with that. And I am completely unfamiliar with the concept of Akashic records. So I would love to know, because it's just like, this is just good stuff to kick off our spiritual month with. Like, let's go.
Yeah. Okay, so Reiki is a form of energy healing, and it literally means like universal life energy. So it's from Japan, and it's basically like you have a person that's trained and attuned to the energy, and it passes through them to the other person. So, like if you and I were to do a session, I'm called the conduit, and then it flows through me to you, and it goes off of intention. So like if you just say like I need help having more patience as a mom, like that would be the intention, and it would go wherever it needs to inside your body. And they actually have, in my class handbook that I had, they had two clocks at different times, and eventually they ended up syncing up to the same time. And that's what it does inside your body. It takes the low energies and syncs it up to the high ones. So
That's
that's what I love
perfect.
about it, is it can be used for literally anything, anywhere. It has no restraints. You can go forward and backward in time. So it's a bit of a time bender, but I'm a manifesting generator, so they're literally called time benders. So that's no surprise that I like Reiki.
Oh my goodness. Perfect. So I'm assuming you
Yeah.
did some human design work with Heather, or?
Um, I found it through Taylor Eaton,
Oh, okay.
but I've been doing like a lot on my own, like research. Like I have a book somewhere where I was just like reading it, and I wanted to learn more about like how my kids operated and how I can help them individually.
Yeah.
And
I'm
I learned
so
a
with
lot.
you. I'm there right now. I started reading their charts the other day. I had my second session with Heather for human design. And then I was like, okay, it's time to start reading my kids' charts. Like, it's time to get into this, because so for the
Yep.
people who are like, what the F are these bitches talking about right now? Which we could, I think that there's something to be said about what we are talking about. So, you know, um, so Katrina gave us a beautiful explanation of what Reiki is. And there is, so regardless of whether you feel comfortable with the concept of like energy passing from one individual to another, and that being so therefore that person being a practitioner of Reiki, and that's someone's offering, um whether you're comfortable with it or not, it's like, okay, here's another
Yeah.
mode of spiritual wellness that people may or may not be drawn to as a way, to prioritize their spiritual self-care. And then another another thing that me and Katrina are talking about is the concept of having a human design reading, which is something that I've got into lately, which is really just like, you know, a very, could be a very bare bones blueprint for like who you're meant to be, and then it gives you permission to actually step into it, because like you kind of already know. It's all that conditioning that comes in and blocks you from actually
Mhm.
embodying it and just being like, oh, like that's who I actually fucking am. Like, right, like I already knew that, but I keep trying to please the fucking world. And I keep trying to therefore, inadvertently block myself from just embodying who I've always been. So the reason that I just mention it is because these are all forms of spiritual self-care as a way to know yourself more, like know thyself. Like, are you connected? Are you aligned mind, body, and spirit? Do you feel disconnected? Like, so maybe there is an element of spirituality or faith or however you want to look at it that is lacking in your life, which we can kind of talk about too. But tell us a little bit about this Akashic Records, because that is a new concept for me. Which I'm probably like,
Okay.
it's probably going to be like, oh, now I know about this. I know about this. And here's going to be my next, like, exciting adventure.
My next rabbit hole to go down into. Yeah, so the Akashic Records is this very healing, pure love state of being. So the earth is like a 532 frequency, which is like love. That's why they call her like Mother Gaia, and it's all about love and harmony. That's kind of the same space that the Akashic Records holds, like the same vibe. So what it is like each of us has a soul, and we can go into the records of our soul. So it's like a library that holds every single thing your soul has ever said, done, thought, wanted to do, or has gone through, including like people, jobs, everything you could possibly think of is inside of this space. And you have to be trained to really access it, to know you're accessing it. So it's believed that Albert Einstein, Abraham Lincoln, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, like all these super famous, like change driven people that changed our history had access to it because they were all so ahead of their time. Like Abraham Lincoln got rid of slavery because he didn't agree with it. Albert Einstein created, I think, like the light bulb, I think it was. I don't remember.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so.
and then Martin Luther King stood up for segregation, even though like he got severely hurt for it and then he ended up dying for it. But all these people created this massive change in our history. And so they thought that they had access to a higher knowledge. And that's what this space is all about. It's about getting to know yourself, where you've been on a soul level, because that's who we really are. Because without the soul, the body is just a shell.
Mm-hmm.
So your personality, it's not in your brain, it's in your soul.
Mm.
And so that's what I love about it, is because you can go in and get specialized advice, guidance specifically for you, instead of listening to the masses be like, oh, you should go do this. And you're like, but I don't want to do that, but I don't know what to do. So
Mm.
that's what I love
I
about
love
it.
that. Because, I mean, you kind of just sparked a thought in my head. Like, I am a coach, not only a yoga instructor, but I work with women on their self-care as a mode to mind, body, and soul alignment. And there is there's a fair amount of mindset coaching that I incorporate into that. And I kind of laugh at myself sometimes, because I get to a certain point with that stuff. And then but then I'm like, I kinda sometimes laugh at myself for being, like, too nice to my clients, because get to a certain point with that stuff, and I'm like, "But, don't force this. Like, don't even force what I'm telling you right now. Like,
Right.
unless this is sitting with you and firing you the fuck up and making you feel like, "Oh, that's exactly what I needed to hear." And now I feel like, something that I needed is like, you just gave that to me or whatever. And I feel lighter and I feel less stressed and and it resonates with me. Unless you get that from the words that are coming out of my mouth or whatever physical practice we're incorporating or whatever it is, if it is not sitting with you, then we need to go a different way. So it's funny because the reason I say I laugh at myself is because I'm like, you know, should I be more tough love? Like, should I be more, like this is no, like you got to push yourself type of thing. But I'm not, because I'm such a believer in that concept that we all have this ingrained like blueprint in our soul that is not going to you're not going to feel drawn to a direction or a way or a focus if it's not in you. And so that all goes back to like intuition, right? And like self-trust, I think, you know?
Yeah. And so, like, I also want to point out, like, none of these are hard, fast rules, like Taylor Eaton likes to say. She always says, these are not hard, fast rules.
Yeah.
You are not getting shoved inside of a box. It's just to make the world seem more expansive so you feel less restricted in how to do something. So, like she said, like, I don't want to force something upon you if it's not letting you the fuck up. Like, just leave it. Like, take
Mhm.
what you want from this, like what resonates and lights a fire inside of you, or you're just like, oh, that makes sense, and leave the rest, because that's going to be your truth in what we are saying and sharing.
Right.
And that's what I love about all these practices is it's not just a set in stone thing. Like, everybody can make it their own to work for them.
Right. I mean, just as an example, like I have my little altar back here with all my stuff in here that's like, this is my space. This is my sacred space where I will come now and I will pull a couple cards and I'll, light a candle and I have my stones and my crystals and stuff and I'll just sort of give myself this moment. But honestly, as of like a year and a half ago, like that, this was like was like, those type of practices were like over there for me. It's like, I don't know, that like I'm a little called to it, but I'm not like really prepared to embody that. I'm really not prepared to make it a part of my self-care practice. And it was funny because my best friend bought me this beautiful yogic path deck, and it's just this gorgeous like box set, whatever, and she bought it for me like 3 years ago, and it was sitting up on this other shelf over here for like 2 years because I thought I was gonna regift it, to be honest with you. Like, it's like that there's like a little regift cube in my big like cube system over here, like maybe somebody else might want this one day. And then one day it was just like calling my name, and I was like, "Okay." And so then I told her about it. I said, "Oh my god, I started using this deck." And I'm like, I'm blown away from like, so just for background, like, so I'll pull a card and there in this particular deck, it's all just like yogic concepts, whether it's the deities, whether it's Ayurveda, whether it's a physical practice, whether it's pranayama, whatever it is. Um, which obviously those concepts are going to resonate with me. So it was like a doorway that then opened into me eventually. Same friend, of course, got me an oracle deck. And then it's like, okay, so it's a comfort thing, but it's like, again, I was not ready for that at the time. It didn't, but so I love that because I think that what you said was something along the lines of like, it's not a cookie cutter one size fits all thing. Um, so in other words, I don't have to be like that person right now or I'm not. Like, it's like I'm not a card, a card pulling person, whatever, or I'm not a spiritual person or I'm not. I don't enjoy the concept of this black and white of these categories that the world tends to put us in. You're either that or you're not. Well, I mean, I am, but it's like I'm on a journey. I'm no problem admitting like I'm on a spiritual journey here, which means that I am going there are different phases of this journey. So I am going
Okay,
to
yeah.
be open to different things at different seasons of life, given where I'm at now. Um, and if we stick to this concept of like, well, you're either that or you're not. I can't tell you how many times I hear people say, "Oh, something like, oh, all of a sudden she's into this, all of a sudden." type of thing. It's like, it doesn't mean that I was never into that, and it doesn't mean that it never resonated with me. There were just a lot of reasons why I wasn't vocal about it with you. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't, you know?
So I had that same kind of thing happen, and a little more into my journey, I guess. So like
Mhm.
I fell in love with Harry Potter. And then I grew up on Disney movies, so I was obsessed with Tinkerbell. Like Tinkerbell, which way? It's backwards. Is over here in the background. It's backwards. This is throwing me off. But Tinkerbell's
Oh,
back
I
up there
see
on the
her.
shelf.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
And
do
I
that
have
I
like a
do that
bunch of
all the
Tinkerbell
time.
stuff. It's backwards from Facebook
I
Live,
grab
so
my
I'm
drink
going
on the
off.
wrong
But
side, like, if I have the drink over here, I'll be
yeah.
like
Yeah. So I grew up with like very magic, like fantasy as a foundation, and then it just evolved. So like when Supernatural came out, I watched that. I read sci-fi books like The Host,
Mm.
Twilight, Vampire Diaries, all these supernatural ones, and Charmed gave me goosebumps. I was like, I want to do this. I want to see the future. I want to be able to move things with my mind. I want to flick my hands and blow stuff up. Like, who wouldn't want to do that?
Yeah.
Or I could freeze people.
Yeah.
So I got obsessed with that show, and I could watch all the seasons over and over and over again, and I have. But and Ghost Whisperer was the other big one.
Mm.
And then like when I started doing the Akashic Records and Reiki, everybody's like, why are you into this weird stuff all of a sudden? I'm like, have you not met me? Do you not know what the shows I watch? Like magic has been in my life since day one because Disney is magical. But
Mhm.
then it just evolved. And so like the things you're drawn to as a kid kind of give an indication of like how your life, like the purpose of your life, so to speak, as an adult. And a lot of people grow out of touch with that. So
Yeah.
um like now I'm into like spirit animals as part of the woo world, and mine is a cat. And funny enough is I had a cat, and I might be remembering wrong, but I remember her getting just like ding dong ditched on our doorstep, and it was a black cat. And then I had a white one when I was little that I would dress up like a human. And
Cute.
cats have just always been a part of my life, and I love them.
Mm.
And so it's just things like that, like they just add up, and then we just like open the closet for the world to see. So it's not an all of a sudden thing, it's a gradual evolution. I refer to it as being a Pokemon. You evolve, you
Nice.
don't just like completely change who you are.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. It's just you
Yeah.
become more of who you are, and people just tend not to like it.
Yeah. Well, it's so here's the thing. Yeah, it may or may not be that they don't like it, but it makes people very uncomfortable. The reason it
Mm-hmm.
makes them uncomfortable is because people are conditioned to be okay with black or white, inside the box, outside the box, um, but the gray area makes people uncomfortable. Like, so, say I am still, you know, always been like business and marketing focused, right? So like I've always been, and I come from a corporate background. So I still have those abilities and skills, and it's still something that actually does excite me. So it's like just an example of like the pieces of my corporate mentality that like haven't left me and stuff. So it doesn't mean though that as I move into an entire new direction of being a yoga instructor and a self-care mentor and a spiritual teacher and things like this, that it doesn't make people totally uncomfortable with the concept that what if I'm both? What if there's a gray area in here? And the other reason it makes people uncomfortable is exactly that, because the journey is to actually unlearn all those little self judgments or external judgments and conditioning that caused you not to kind of like couch or put on the back burner all those little things that you are drawn to. I think even from childhood it could be, right? um and so you put those beliefs and those interests and those things that kind of light you up a little bit, you put them on the back burner because you get enough eye rolls, and then you decide, oh well, maybe that's not who I'm supposed to be, you know and then it's the unlearning and unfolding of all of that that is a very uncomfortable process, which I think just having spoken to you for a few minutes here, we can both agree on, it's like that unlearning and that untethering from all those judgments is such an uncomfortable process. So that's another reason why it makes people very uncomfortable, because they see you doing it. And I really, truly am a person who believes that inside, whether they know it or not, that it's like triggering that part of them on the inside that knows that they're hiding parts of themselves. So it's going to make everybody who isn't prepared to unlearn all that conditioning and just start really stepping into who they've always been, it's going to make them very uncomfortable to watch somebody do it.
It's very uncomfortable going through it too.
Yes.
Like it's
Yes.
like I didn't know who I was anymore because it wasn't who I was so used to. And like I still feel that way. Like I have no idea who the hell I am half the time. And it's like I have a feeling that's just going to be like the permanent underlying feeling for a while, and I'm okay with that now. But like a year and a half ago, even, I was just like, this is so uncomfortable. I am scared every second of the day. Like, I don't know what to do with myself, but I know I can't go back. And it's thrilling, and we call it fear, but it's really just like a whole new thrill and a whole new layer that we have to go through, like a video game and a whole new level.
Yeah, it really is. You're leveling up, and that is incredibly uncomfortable. There was a book that I read a long time ago, probably more in the mindset category of books, but nonetheless, it's called the Big Leap, and it's all about like the concept, or the big leap, great leap. It's all about the concept of upper limiting yourself, like when you're just on the cusp of that up leveling, and how effing uncomfortable it is. So a lot of people tend to pull themselves back and retreat out of that journey and go back. But I think it is when you're on a spiritual journey and you like, I don't have a problem sharing what I'm in right now. Like I'm in this space of like legit, finally for the first time seeing so crystal clearly the ways in which I've been holding back because of conditioning from childhood, because of being judged in childhood, and all the conforming that I did following that. And so, but yes, so when it's something that profound that you now that I see that I see so crystal clearly now, it's like I can't go back, like you said, like you can't go back. So going back is literally deciding that I'm just not going to be who I am. That's going to like
going back is settling, and like what it holds for you there, and it's just like I don't want that anymore. Like I can't go back to this, but I don't know what's in front of me, and it's like walking through a dense mist and you have no idea what's going to be on the other side, and that's the freaky part.
Yeah.
Because for me, that quite literally happened. I had no idea that like how my life was going to turn out is what was going to happen.
Yep. So I love this, by the way, because I think it's a good segue to talk about motherhood a little bit, because, as much as we're going down this road of like spiritual journey, motherhood is a fucking spiritual journey because of so many reasons. But one of the things that me and Katrina were talking about before we hopped on is like, this is, the world tries to tell us that as women, we're just like meant to be mothers, right? So if we're meant to be mothers, then when it happens, we should have all the answers inside of us somewhere of how to do it perfectly, right? So it's a little problematic because that's a crock of shit, first of all. And so when you take that fully into account and really digest it, the fact that no, we do not have all the answers embedded inside of us of how to do this perfectly, throw it out the window. It is not accurate. When you really swallow that, therefore, the concept comes out that every single time we do anything as a mother is the first time I'm ever doing it. The first time I'm ever. So something that the world is expecting me to know how to do innately on my end, and I'll speak for myself for the time being, even though I know I'm not the only one that feels this way, but it's like that. It's like the world thinks that I should innately know how to know how to govern this new job of mine perfectly, when in actuality, on the other hand, I feel like I have no fucking idea what I'm doing at any turn. I don't know what the right answer is. Now, the beautiful thing is that we have community. We can have conversations like this. We have our mom groups, which may or may not be helpful on some days. You know what I mean? It depends on so many things. But it is important to have a mom tribe. I do think that is accurate, but I think that it is a matter of whether or not we're gonna be real with each other or not.
Yeah.
So that's why this conversation is important to be had, because this is a real deal conversation about motherhood. So as soon as you said it, as soon as you're like you were saying, "I'm called to have this discussion," and I was like, "Yep, me too."
Yeah. So it's just so like in high school, I watched 16 and Pregnant because I didn't want to be 16 and pregnant. I wanted to
Mm,
know, like, I just felt this urge to like want to know how hard it really could be because my mom had me when I was 19. So she was
mm,
technically a teen mom, but she was like also an adult. But they had such a hard time. Like it looked like hell, honestly. And I was like, I could not understand why people decide to put themselves in that situation. And like I didn't
yeah.
really do that, but like I got pregnant when I was 19 and I ended up miscarrying because of my blood type. They told me that like my body recognized it as a foreigner and so it attacked it basically. And I know more about that now. It was not my blood type, but that's what they
Mm,
told me. So it was just like I couldn't find anything that really like told me how hard it could be to be a young mother, but like in your 20s, not a teenager.
yeah.
And everywhere I saw around me, everybody just looked to do it so flawlessly and like so well. And I was like, how do you do that? Like balance yourself, a partner, and then like 2+ kids? Like that's too many personalities to keep track of and to please. And then it's just like it's not about pleasing everybody.
Mm,
Sometimes it's about keeping them alive. It's about keeping them fed and clean, and the house is still a shit disaster, but that's okay.
mhm.
And some people have an easy journey, some people have a really, really freaking hard um like journey to go on, I guess. And it's just like every day they want to cry and they want to run away and hide. And that's the part that people do not talk about. Because when
Nope.
I was pregnant, it was all rainbows and sunshines. This is the best time of your life. You're going to love being a mom and it's going to be absolutely pure bliss all the time, is the impression that I got. And I was just like, I don't think it's going to be that way, guys. Like, but I didn't have proof that what they were saying was anything else. So, like, I knew of journeys that were hard, but like, I didn't personally experience anything like that when I was
Mm,
pregnant. It was just all rainbows and butterflies. So it was like toxic positivity almost.
right. Well, that's why,
And
yeah, I mean, culture and the media are gonna guide the world's view of what something should look like or feel like. So, of course, as little girls, from being little girls, not only are we first of all conditioned to want to have children. So like then you have I think about that all the time, like the concept of like there are so many women who are talking, since we were talking about our blueprints, right? And our, like what we're actually drawn to do versus what the world says we're supposed to do. There are so many women who are just like, I don't want to get married. I don't want to have kids. I had my moments like that because my parents had a pretty shitty marriage for most of, and ended up divorced. Like, so I definitely had my moments where I was like, do I actually want to get married, or am I just going through the motions of what I'm being told I'm supposed to do? Now, ultimately, I got lucky because I met an awesome man. And that's the only, you know what I mean? So in other words, if that didn't happen, I'm still to this day, I'm not 100% sure that I would have even gotten married, let alone had kids. But anyway, um the the point is that you have all this conditioning from such a young age, and not only is it inclusive of that you're supposed to get married and have kids, but that it looks a certain way. It's literally painted for us in every form of culture and media that we look at from a very young age of what motherhood is supposed to look like. Then I think also paired with that is even in the households where You know, so and it's all there's all they're all yeah, there's all these generational concepts that come into because obviously mothers now have a completely different thing that they're up against than mothers than, you know, say say mothers of our mother's age, right? Previous generation. In that generation, I feel like, and again, I'm no expert, but um I feel like there was less of an ability to even question what the mother was doing. And now, in this day and age, because there's so much more consciousness around childhood trauma and things that really stay with, now we're so hyper aware of what is going to stay with these children and potentially hurt them in their development, that the microscope is now on mothers. I think in previous generations, it was like, how fucking dare you even question the mother of the household? Like, how dare you even question the upbringing, you know, process or procedure that I've decided
Right.
will be happening in my house? In fact, you know, when you bring in a lot of people are talking about the concept of the mother wound now, which I love, like talking about this because it's like, yeah, like it's not to say that every mother like, you know, wounds their child, but you kind of do because
Yeah.
you're like this the most important figure in their life if you're in their life, right? So one of the two things that I think really hit me more than anything in over the past couple of years as far as making me see things a little bit more clearly as far as my journey into motherhood. When I was going through yoga teacher training, I had this amazing teacher and she somehow gave me this like view that for some reason I had not like I had not really grasped yet, of the fact that like your child is like not like this part of you know, like not this appendage of you or a prop in your life that you're meant to perfect and master and sculpt and fix and perfect so that they can have a happy life and get all the things they want and whatever. They're literally their own human. Like, it's just weird, like, I know it sounds, like, so simple, like, duh, but honestly, I think that that's part of the conditioning is for us as mothers to feel like we have to sculpt them, and it's too much responsibility, and so when it's portrayed that way and illustrated for me in that way, it was fucking mind-blowing, just something so simple that, like, "No, no, 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 you can do everything." You can do everything right, which no mother ever does. Like, even my therapist most recently, this was the other thing that was like light bulb, was my therapist said, "You're gonna fuck up your kids. Like, there's no way around it. You in some way, you're gonna fuck up your kids. But
It
it's
would
just a
drive you
matter
insane
of
to try not to.
right, exactly. It's like, it's taking on Mount Everest. Like, it's not realistic." So, anyway, I get on a tangent, but I wanna let you respond.
Yeah, so one of the things that I brought up like in my mind was like I told you earlier before we started, like there's a condition that like is not heard of because there's no term for it in the United States. I found this a few years ago, like after Bentley was born and I was going through my illness. So I had a rough start to motherhood. I'm gonna start here. I had a miscarriage and they told me it was because of my blood type. I'm an A negative, so the Rh negative and the baby is a positive blood type, your body will attack it
Wow.
and basically think it's trying to hurt you.
Oh.
And then um like so that was December of 2013. I got pregnant June 2014 with Jackson.
Mm,
And I was scared the entire time. If he stopped moving for 10 minutes, I freaked out.
yeah,
If he like went 2 days being radio silent and I didn't feel anything, a hiccup, a movement, I went to the ER.
yeah,
If I had one tiny little spotting issue, which granted for me, I do have to get a shot, but I freaked out. I was like, I'm miscarrying. He's not going to make it. And my entire pregnancy was spent being scared. And it's something I did stop sharing with people because they're like, you're just being paranoid. Like, you need to let go of the past and realize that that's not going to happen again. But for me, that was like my biggest fear. And
that
then
was
when
your
he was
reality.
born, Yeah. And when he was born, it was very traumatic because my body was not producing Pitocin. I had no Braxton Hicks. I was not dilating on my own. I got to like half a centimeter and I was like 40 weeks. And I kept telling my doctor, I was like, there's something wrong with my pelvis. It hurts. I can't sit down more than like 10 minutes at a time. It hurt all the time. And he's like, you're just being a first time mom. It's okay. It's normal. I was like, no, it's not normal. And then like when he was born, I felt like I got hit by a freight train because they had to break my water at 2 centimeters. That's not when your water is supposed to break and not have it be like, you should not feel like you got hit by a truck when your water breaks.
Yeah.
Like, you should already be having contractions to build up to that point, so it's not such a shock on your system. But for me, I was literally shaking. I threw up. I could barely sit still to get my epidural. And I had to get an epidural because I didn't sign the CO2 or whatever, the gas paperwork in time. And so, like, and I wasn't progressing. They told me if you do not get this epidural, you will have to get a C-section because my body was not doing what it needed to do because it was so shocked.
Yeah.
And then with Bentley, it was a whole different story. Like, I was not planning on getting pregnant. I miscalculated my cycle by 1 day.
Of course.
1 day. So when you think you're out of your fertile window, ladies, think again because you could still have another extra day and still get pregnant.
Yeah.
But I had placenta previa with him. So I was petrified I was going to have to get a C-section. I was like, well, great. I don't have 12 weeks of support system to be with me the whole time. I was like, I can't do this. So I wasn't as fearful because everything was fine. Like, it went along normally. I started getting Braxton Hicks at like 30 weeks pregnant and his placenta ended up moving. But then afterwards, my body went into havoc. I got allergic to sertraline because my anxiety was through the roof afterwards. I believe I had like early stages of like postpartum depression / anxiety. And they caught it in time because I already had a diagnosis of depression and anxiety as a teenager. And so I was allergic to that. They tried paroxetine, which is a cousin of it. I was allergic to that. And from that point on, so like January of 2017 until like the fall, it took that long. I was in pain every day. It was borderline between pain and laughing because it tickled. My nerves had no idea what was going on. My body was freaking out. And then fall of 2017, I want to say, I got the diagnosis of fibromyalgia. And at the time, I was in network marketing trying to bring in more money because I had this feeling like I would not be in healthcare forever. I needed something else. And so I dropped out of nursing school when I got this diagnosis because I knew I was not going to be able to move forward. And it just like changed me because I had to relearn how to do everything that I used to do because I was so tired all the time. I was hurting on all parts of my body. Like, one day I was fine, the next I was like glued to the couch because I felt like shit. And it's not something that's going to go away because now, after seeing a rheumatologist, I have a gene called HLA-B27. And if it's positive, your body attacks itself. Your healthy cells are seen as invaders and your body literally attacks itself from the inside out. So I will get sick a lot. That's why I'm in pain. And because like I have a condition called hypermobility because apparently you're not supposed to be able to go like this and touch your thumb to your forearm.
Yeah,
and I can do that.
Ability. Yeah.
So that along with the gene.
Nope.
You can't do it? No?
Nope.
Yeah. See, like, I can do it better with my left hand. Like, my right hand, I can't do it very well.
Wow.
But
yeah. Wow.
But the fact that I can do it and I can touch the floor with my fingertips without bending my knees, that's the other sign of hypermobility. You can just touch the floor without your knees bending. And so now knowing that, I have to get an MRI done to figure out how well that's going to impact my life. But like, I will never, ever be like other people my age that are completely healthy. And I have to learn to accept that. Right. But along this journey, getting sick is what brought me into the spiritual world because they told me I had a friend who was a network marketing coach, Virginia Shower. She told me that it's an emotional, like you store emotions in your body and it causes pain. At the time, that made a lot of sense to me. So I'm like, okay, can you put me in this group you told me about? And that's where I found Reiki because the day I joined is the day she did a live video. And I was there was no going back after that point. And then it just evolved, and I got a little too hot and heavy in it and ended up overcharging the bank account, pissing my husband off. To this day, I still hear about it. But so I probably should have paced myself a lot better, but it made me feel better, like all of that. And then I learned about like trapped emotions, and I got my pain levels down to a point where my legs weren't killing me every day, and I could walk again without wanting to cry or wanting to laugh. Like I just felt normal. And then it just kept evolving and evolving. And then I got my Reiki master attunement of like the summer of 2019. And I woke up and I was like, I've been torturing myself and my husband. I'm not happy. I need to get out. And so I developed a plan. I didn't tell him because I didn't want to make him mad. And in my case, like when he's mad, I don't want to deal with it. He's not abusive when he's mad, but it's scary. Like to me, I don't like confrontation. So to me, people like yelling at you or like getting upset when you're physically in front of them is the worst thing ever.
Right.
I freeze and I panic. So I did what I thought was the safest route. And I told him I was staying at my dad's house. And then I told him like, hey, I'm not coming back once I was at my dad's house. So I did it a little bit childish, but that was like the way that felt the best for me to do it. And then we had some issues later that year, and I just kept going forward with my tools to like process it. And like I still have this deep rooted fear from what happened, but it goes away a little bit more each day. But being a mom is even harder now than it was then. And the condition that I found during that high heightened time, it's called postnatal depletion in New Zealand. Doctors call it an actual condition, like we do for postpartum depression. And it can last up to 10 years after you give birth. And basically what it said is like the placenta's job is to restore the mother's health. That's why cultures say to dehydrate the placenta and put it in pill form and take it in a pill after birth. And it's supposed to rejuvenate the mother's physical body, emotional body, and like your soul basically after giving birth. Because you do lose so much. Your brain literally shrinks when you're pregnant. And that's why we have what they call pregnancy brain. Yeah. But for some people like me, you just don't get better after you have kids, and you're exhausted more than you would think a new mom would be. And if you add in more children, it's just like, okay, so now you're starting a whole new cycle. And you're even less tired because you're taking care of one or two more kids on top of this new child. And then you're just like, I don't have time for myself. Yeah. And when I read that article, I was just like, that's what's wrong. Like I knew without researching it, like something just told me in my body that like, this is what I'm dealing with. Yeah. And this is why motherhood is not all sunshine and rainbows and glitter. And like, I enjoy every single second of it because honestly, I spent more times crying than I did enjoying my kids. And I can't go back and rewrite it. The best thing I can do is send Reiki backwards in that time and like hope that by sending, this is where it gets a little time bendy. Like if you send Reiki backwards to a situation, it's like your higher self sending something to you now. Right. And so it like alters things very subtly. And it reminds me of The Matrix. Yeah. I don't know why, because I've never seen that movie. Oh. Or The Time Traveler's Wife. That's the one I've seen where he like alters things slightly. And she ends up sleeping with his younger self because he goes out and gets fixed without telling her because he doesn't want to put his child through that. And so it just like really messes with people's heads when I try to explain that part. And they're like, yeah, that doesn't exist. Like, you're just dumb. I was like, nope, it sure does exist. Sure does. I do it all the time.
Now, listen, it's so, like, first of all, thank you for sharing that story because it is a wonderful example of a story of one of many, many stories that nobody shares because we're told that we're supposed to bounce back. And so not even like just told that we're supposed to bounce back, we're rewarded for bouncing back, whether that is physically, you know, by losing the weight after pregnancy or whatever, or getting your postpartum or pre-baby body back. Oh, there goes my mic. I'm getting a little excited. whatever bounce back means to you, that's what we're told we're supposed to do. Like, in other words, that's the optimal situation, is for us to bounce back physically, mentally, emotionally, because of all the hormones. So we need to find a way to bounce back emotionally, which sometimes is going to mean saying and getting diagnosed with postpartum anxiety, postpartum and depression, and being medicated. And don't get me wrong, just like any mental illness, there are going to be levels where you will need to be medicated, because if we can't get through our day, then we're putting ourselves or others in harm, especially if we are raising little humans. Yeah, then we need to be medicated. So I'm not saying, oh, well, that's like, bullshit or anything. It's just that, how common is that? And so but it's also put into this box of, okay, well, that's just something that can happen, instead of looking at it a much broader spectrum, from a much broader view, and being like, oh my God, so like this is not anywhere near as easy as culture has appropriated it to be and painted it to be. And it's just quite frankly a complete mess. One of the things that has blown my mind as of lately too, that's like in addition to all those things in ways that it's complicated that you were saying, is as women, our hormone cycle is it's been blowing my mind lately. 28 days, plus or minus.
Yep.
A male's hormone cycle is 24 hours. That's it.
Yep.
So
we are literally a different person every week. And that's what, like, I literally just got told that the other day. He's like, every time you have your period, you're a different person. I'm like, hello, I'm a woman. Of course I am. But like,
and
my
so,
emotions are
and
like
so
so
we
heightened
go
then.
bigger, like forget just the concept. I mean, maybe we are going too broad here, but it's true. The fact that it's not just whether or not you're a mother or not. We are punished in a way and viewed a certain way for just being who we are, because it literally, we have no way around it. I mean, unless you want to medicate me with hormones to totally to synthesize my whole cycle, which obviously fuck off, we're not doing that. But it's like, you know what I mean? So it's not, so we're living in a society that basically rewards being able to wake up every morning and start again. And this is not to make this like a feminist type of conversation, but we have to like state the facts of like, we're already going in a direction where we're expected in this society, wake up, reboot every 24 hours, a brand new day, brand new person, right? And that is just not ideal for a female on this earth. As one of my mentors says, a menstruating person. If you're a menstruating human, then that cycle. So you pair that with all the struggles of motherhood that exist, that we already kind of touched on here and there, of like these expectations that are just completely fucking unrealistic. And then you pair that with not only our existing hormonal stages and potentially roller coaster, right? That is, by the way, natural, and that if given the space and time and ways to properly manage, we can work with that, but just not, oh no, you need to start over and be potentially an even better person every 24 hours, not even the same person you were. It's just not ideal. So you pair that with those struggles of motherhood that we were discussing. And then in addition to that, those hormonal complications that then come in after the fact and don't potentially leave for up to 10 years. Like, no, there's no bounce back. That's just a false concept. I mean, so my kids,
I really don't like that terminology either, because it's not like about going back to who you used to be, because who you used to be probably couldn't handle having kids. And then it's just like, okay, but this is where the woo comes back in, and where it's like viewed as like this such taboo thing. And like even back then, like witchcraft is how it started. It was seen as this horrible thing, and all that's how women used to track their cycles before we had apps to track it for us, was by the moon. Our moon is a 28-day phase, and there's no coincidence that women are 28 days is like the normal length for your cycle. And so you can tell a lot by like what phase the moon is in. So like there's full new first quarter, there's the waxing, the waning. Like people who study the moon are so in touch with their feminine energy that like their cycles get better.
Yeah.
And then their hormones get better, and then they feel like more sane people. And then in turn, if you feel more sane, like you can handle the outbursts and stuff from your toddlers and your teenagers, and you feel more adept to adapting as a mom. And that's something that I've learned, is like it's not about going back, it's about adapting and accepting that like this is your life, so you might as well make the best of it. And that's why I love having these tools, is because it's, you can't go back to who you used to be because you grow. It's like you meet somebody 10 years later, you reconnect with them, they're not the same person. People change and they grow, and that's part of how life is. Everything changes and grows. That's why we have seasons.
Right. It's literally, yeah, we could take a tip or two from nature just looking around. Like this is not a black and white situation. We grow, we evolve. So yeah, it does bring it back into the spiritual realm of this conversation, because it to me sometimes it's even similar to how you're saying, how people say that like becoming an entrepreneur is or in some form, way, shape, or form, starting a business or working for yourself is a spiritual process and a spiritual journey, because it's so hard, and it is going to trigger every fucking insecurity that you have to put yourself out there. So it is a very spiritual experience, because, and even the word spiritual, I think people like think automatically we're talking woo, but like we're not, even though I hate that term anyway, but it's just whatever. I'll embrace it to illustrate a topic, right? But but the point, saying the word spiritual, it's like, okay, like you need to work on yourself. It's that work that we have to do on ourselves and learning about ourselves, and that radical acceptance that you were just talking about, of being like totally in acceptance of like how things are going now, and what we need to do to really take care of ourselves as we move through it. Not necessarily like the whole resilience conversation, which I think is there's a time and a place for that, of like, what can we learn from this like tumultuous experience? What can we learn from this? What are the lessons? How do we evolve from this tough struggle that we're in? Totally something to be said about that. But how do I take care of myself as I move through this? And that's where my mind always goes as far as my work, like that's why I specifically have a goal of working with mothers, because I feel like just like any other like major life transition, whether it's starting a business or being laid off or or ending a very long-term relationship, just like anything else, but potentially even more so, becoming a mother and becoming embodying that persona out of pretty much nowhere, because there's very little there's no preparation, there's no like handbook. I know, again,
Yeah.
we're supposed to be, we're supposed to just innately have that handbook inside. It's crock. It's all crock. Um, so it's the same concept. It is a spiritual practice to have that acceptance of, oh, like, like I'm learning every step of the way. I'm learning. Like one of the examples I think for me of so many is like when I fuck up and when I like yell at my kids and when I absolutely lose it, and it's just like, oh yeah, no, that's
I
that was
literally scream
not
like a
correct.
banshee sometimes because I've had it. Like I say the same thing 100 times in a day, and they still do not hear what you say.
Yeah,
And that is the most frustrating part, especially if you already feel like people don't hear you to like as adults.
yeah,
Like I have this thing where like I feel like I'm invisible to people around me. It's always been that way because I the way I saw it is I had a hard time making friends because I didn't fit in with everybody. I had a
Mhm.
distinct crowd that I fit in with. And they are also a rare breed. So it was like, okay, I don't have friends. Like my circle is small. I felt invisible because of that. Like, so you create this belief that like your voice is going unheard. And then when you have kids, that gets magnified.
Yeah.
Like all your insecurities get magnified. Every
Mhm.
single thing that you think you believe gets switched on a dime. And so like that's where the frustration starts to come in is you like repeat yourself over and over and over again. You stick to your boundaries and they push back even harder than you can keep your boundaries up.
Mhm.
And for me, that was my problem. And that's why I have so many struggles right now with my kids because I always back down because I felt like I was the only one trying to keep that boundary up. And so
Mm.
I was just like, I'm too tired for this. I don't have the energy to keep the boundary up and still be functional the
Right.
way I need to be. So I let the boundary down just to make peace for the day.
Mhm.
And now my kids expect me to back down. So
Right.
now it's like, oh, hey, mom's not that person anymore. Her pain's a lot less. She's clearer now. She has more energy. Granted, it varies day to day, but so now it's about establishing mom is boss. Like,
Right.
if I say something, I mean it, and you better listen to me. Like, you
Right.
don't have to do exactly what I say because that's not my job. And that's something else that I'm seeing now is like, it's not my job to dictate who they should be or what I want them to do. I call them guidelines. I don't even call them rules because
Right.
it's a guideline. And I explain
Right.
it to Jackson. I'm like, you know how the road has edges? And if you like go around the curve and you don't stay on the road and you go off the edge, you can crash and burn. He's like, yeah. I was like, that's what I'm trying to teach you with how we do things in this house with me. Is it's like a guideline to keep you on the road and to keep you safe. Because I told him, I'm like, if you can't listen to me, how are you going to listen to the police officers when you're an adult? He's
Yeah.
like, I won't. I'm like, exactly. I was like, the people who don't listen to police officers are the people who told their parents to like, no, I don't have to. You're not the boss of me.
Right.
And they couldn't listen to their own parents. So now they're not listening to the law and it's getting them in trouble and in jail. I was like, probably shouldn't be having a conversation like this with a 6-year old, but he understands it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is my job is to keep you in the guidelines to be a good person, but to also listen to yourself. So like I'll ask
Mhm.
him questions like I want to say he's a manifesting generator. So I can't
Mm.
ask him open-ended questions. So if I ask him, what do you want for dinner? It's, um, I don't
Yeah.
know. So I was like, okay, do you want hot dogs or mac and cheese? He'll be able to tell me no problem.
Yes. Yes.
So it's like everything is just kind of like evolving now to where you like finally get a groove of how things go because you're learning every single day.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is you have intuition, you have to listen to it. So like
Right.
I'm a manifesting generator. If I feel like I should not be doing something, I won't do it.
Mhm.
And it's just like talking yourself off a ledge every single day to not be that banshee anymore. And I can talk about this all day, but embodying it is a whole nother process because it's a
Yeah.
lot harder to decide not to scream every day. And it's a lot harder to be like, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to be able to talk to you. I'm going to go in the bathroom till I can come back down to here. And I lock the door behind me and I just say, I'm going to the bathroom.
Right.
And now, like, if I say I need quiet time or I need to be alone, like, Jackson will understand. He's like, okay, I'm just going to go in my room. I'm like,
Mm.
well, I was going to leave, but thank you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then Bentley, he's just like, no, I want to be by you.
Yeah, of course. Well, the age is a whole nother factor, right? Of,
Yeah.
that's it's funny because I talk to so many moms and it's like moms of younger kids, moms of older kids. And there are some moms that say it gets harder as they get older, and some moms that agree that it gets easier as they get older, but I can see both sides. And I
Mm-hmm.
honestly think it might be a wash as to like, I don't think that it makes any sense to draw that distinctive line. We don't, the last thing we need honestly is more lines and more like categories and like, yeah, like dividers and stuff because then all of a sudden as soon as it's like, oh, it gets easier as they get older. Okay, well, so now it's that now we're saying that moms of older kids have it easier. And it's like, again,
Not
these
always.
overarching generalizations are hurting us because we are not talking about we're not only talking about whether or not it's hard or difficult for us as the mother, the child of every mother on this earth is different. Every single child is different completely. I think that I say it all the time just to make sure that it's that everyone's aware that I'm aware that I think I got relatively lucky with both my kids. Like they're okay. It's whether or not it's mostly me of whether or not I'm going to be, I mean, not that they don't misbehave, of course they do. But this is more about me releasing any control that I feel I should or feel I need to have over them. Like you said, I love that. The fact I try to actually tell them that all the time, that I'm like, I'm here to guide you. I am here to guide you. I'm not here to be your dictator. I think that a lot of parents get into that trap, which actually ultimately gives them more anxiety, that you know, that they need to dictate how their children behave, and that it's an automatic respect that the children have to give to the parent. And that's a thin line, because I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's about, you have to, maybe as a parent, depending on the situation, you don't have to gain the respect, but you do have to act well enough to maintain it and to deserve it, and to yeah, to maintain that respect. And then also same thing, you're dictating, so it's like the pressure's on you then, because now if you don't do it just right, whatever dictating you decided to do and whatever demands you're placing on the behavior of your children and the actions of your children, if you don't do it just right, then what the hell? Then you're not doing it right. So you're placing so much pressure on yourself. So the guidance part of it, I think, like lightens the load on both sides, where it's like, all I can do is guide you. All I can do is guide you
Yeah.
in what might be your best path to the optimal life. And then I also, like, will say to my kids, like, I'm also I'm not a maid, and I'm not a clown either, because then you have the parents who I think also put tons of pressure on themselves. I mean, I'm guilty of it too, because then I will, um beat myself up occasionally for not, like, sitting down and, like, playing with toys with my kids, or, not taking them enough places, which right now is, like, fucking irrelevant and a confusing concept as it is. But, like, not planning enough, like, entertaining, outings and events and activities and all kinds of things, and it's almost, like, soothing to me to reiterate to them, I am not a clown. I
Yeah.
am not the entertainer over here.
That's
I
not
am
me
here
either.
to
Like,
guide you into to maybe, hopefully, ideally, what might be the optimal life for you. I am not a maid or a clown or a dictator, you know?
okay, so I don't mean to be a party poop, but I have
Gotta
15% and I
go.
am not by an outlet.
Oh, yeah,
So
15%.
I
Well, it
had
doesn't matter.
50% when we started this. And
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like not
We have been
expecting it to eat
on
through battery
we
like this.
we've been on for over an hour, and I was about to close us out, um, but it was getting so good, right? And
Yeah.
it's so funny because it's such an important conversation that in the back of my head, I'm thinking we could even have, like, a part 2 to this conversation where we maybe even have like, we could even talk in advance about a more, like, organized, like, way to tick off, like, what like, takeaways for moms kinda thing.
Yeah.
Because it's just we hit on so many things in a very organic and messy kind of way, which
All
I
over the place.
which is fine. I think they got the point. So,
Yeah.
it's rough, guys. So I mean, my final thought, very mini final thought would be like, please, like, if you're a mother and you're listening to this, know that you are not alone if you feel like you are in the, just in the woods, right? And also just go so easy on yourself. And that's why I talk about self-care for moms repetitively until it's just, like, everywhere. You have to absorb this. You must take care of yourself if you are a mother. You must find a way to prioritize your health and your wellness, because there is no way you're gonna be able to pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
It is just not gonna
And
happen.
and don't expect to do it in a day. Like it will
Yeah.
take probably a month or 2 or 3 or 6 to finally get a routine down, and that's the part like nobody told me. Is I expected to get it done like fast because I needed it now.
Yeah.
And it's just like nothing ever happens like the next day. Like your vibration from today could manifest in like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It just it takes time, and that's the thing a lot of people feel like they don't have.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I'm running across in like everybody that I talk to that like wants to work with me is they're just like, well, I need to do this, this, and this right now. I'm like, okay, well, I'm here to tell you that's not going to happen. Like not
Yeah.
in that time frame that you want it to. It will happen if you want it to and work towards it, but it's going to take time.
Patience
And it's
is
going to
key.
take
Yeah.
patience and motivation and discipline and all these things that even I'm learning how to do myself.
Right.
So,
It's so important. 100%. This is a journey. This is not like we're going to flip the switch and you're good tomorrow.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think this is wonderful. Allow yourself space for that. Um, so I'm going to put in the caption to this video on YouTube and on Facebook all the information about where you could find Katrina if you want to reach out to her. So I'll have you send me all that information and I'll add it
Oh,
into,
yeah.
the show notes or what have you. Thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation. I feel it just fed my soul in a good kind of way to get all this out on the table.
Like,
Right?
honestly, you sent me that message and I was like, yes, automatic yes. I was like, let's do it.
Yeah. It's something that was necessary to speak truth to, and I feel like we could say a lot more. So, of
hmm
course, there's so much to be said. But again, thank you so much and maybe we'll do it again.
Yes, thank you for having me.